Angelic Teaching number 1, session number 5. Alright, there we are. Today we're going to be, during this session, working on increasing your level of frequency and helping you to get ready. Alright, let's go. Look into my eyes. So you know the drill. You focus on your crystal ball. You visualize this sphere of energy shining and expanding. Visualizing is a big part of in the energy work. The more you visualize something, the more you believe that what you perceive is reality. And when you do this, as you hold the field of energy, the vortex, you manifest it. You should have a look at one movie called The Green Lantern. Most of the time in Marvel movies and fantasy movies you find a lot of truth, especially linked to energy work. In that movie, the main character goes on a specific planet for his initiation, and he has to discover his own power, and he can't do it. He struggles doing it, and he has to go through a fight kind of training with another Green Lantern member. And they start to create weapons to fight against each other, and they use their imagination in order to do that, and they apply it with the circumstances that they have to face. So one will be creating an amazing weapon, and the other one has to create a shield in order to protect himself from the bullets coming from it, etc., etc. And at one point, the main character discovers his tools, his gifts, and he is able to overcome his opponent within a few minutes as soon as he gets the concept. It's exactly what's happening through energy work. So that's why I really want you to get back to that movie if you didn't see it, and start looking at it and start understanding exactly those different parameters. You will find that there is a part of not knowing, there is a part of doubting, there is a part of learning from experience, there is a part of duplicating what you see, and then there is this part of genius who comes in and kicks in, and then it allows you to connect to your gifts and do your unique work. And that's the most important part. But in order to get to that level, you need to go through this practice and sometimes make shortcuts that are going to be initiated and guided by your own intuitions. So for example, when I put my hands like that and I start to open up, I really see this ball, this sphere, this white ball shining your aura from your soul. And I can feel the density as well on my hands becoming warmer. It's becoming warmer, it's becoming denser, it's becoming brighter. And I can really feel the difference. The same way when I bring my hands back, and we do this exercise where we bring some pressure in order to create an outside rim a little bit thicker around it, which allows you to feel more protected and more centered as well. Well, when I compress, I really feel the pressure on my hands, and as I involve my muscles in this process, well, I can feel this physical contraction as I'm pushing and pulling at the same time, but pushing a little bit more this time than pulling out. And I do this with both hands. That way my body participates in the equation, and it creates some senses inside of my body, which helps me and my gifts to be in alignment with the work that I'm doing and with the intention that I put into it. It helps that way to start to feel more the energy as well. Also, when you do some work on someone or to yourself in front of the mirror, for example, then you apply with your vision. It's like you're working on a picture. Whatever is in front of you, if, for example, I put my hands around the shape of this person to reshape its auric field, when I do this, I bring more energy from the vortex, and I guide this energy around the body of this person, reshaping its auric field, and visualizing that I retrace, I recreate, I reinforce all the contour of the shape of the person. Well, when I do that, I actually work on what I see on the picture. Let's say, for example, that I work on my own picture right now, then I would just work around the shape that I see. The same way when I have one person in front of me, I do the same thing, which makes you working on a 2D plan when you're actually working on a 3D plan. It brings everything back to just a simple image. This is how we work remotely as well. When you work remotely, whatever you see, whatever you perceive from the picture, you work directly on the picture. At one point, you're going to start to see the picture morphing the same way you see one person morphing. You will start to see images coming up or scenes as well. You will see back in the past or in the present or in the future events that happen. It's a tool that helps you to connect more with this person. Do we need the picture? No, we don't need the picture. The picture helps. It's a tool. It's an added tool, an additional one. It's very handy because it gives you a lot of insights on one person, but you don't have to. The same way some people like to be working by touching. They need to touch in order to be working further. Well, it creates a connection, but you don't have to. We've been working with some psychics that way, where they were only able to get some insight as soon as they were touching one object from that person. So we kind of replaced that by a teddy bear. And we say to that psychic, we say, well, imagine that this teddy bear is that person. And connect to that bear like you were touching this person, and visualize that you're actually touching the person. And this psychic tells you, well, it's a bear. Yeah, it's a bear, but it could be actually a person. So you just connect just by touching the paw of the bear, and you just visualize that you're touching this person remotely. Guess what? It worked. The mind will associate the touch to the perception of having someone in front of you, and from that we're able to connect and to help that person remotely. It was very important. This person was over 50 years old, and really wanted to help the person calling over the phone, and actually didn't feel confident in doing without having this person in front of her. So that tool is really helpful, but the same way it helps one person to be able to connect remotely through another object. This time it's about a bear, a teddy bear, but it could be anything. Actually, it could be anything. It could be an object, it could be anything. Again, it depends on your gifts that you have, and that way you connect directly through your gifts and you enhance it. Let's say, for example, that you like to hear more than to see, and you connect more that way. Well, you would probably would like to have this person over the phone, for example, more than seeing this person. You could be having your client recording an audio message and leaving you this audio message telling you what they want to be working on, and asking your client to send you an audio message to be working from it, instead of having something be typed. When we work on Psychic TV, for example, you've got 3 different ways for people to connect with us. They can either send a picture, or either send a text message to the studio, or they could also send an audio message. And you work with whatever this person gives you. And it works. Either way it works. You always feel more confident with one way or another, and you always want to get better on the other one. That's the way it works. Again, what counts is trusting that whatever information you pick up, then you can use it and you can help from that. Sometimes it will be an insight, an information, a hint that will guide you towards doing some specific work. Sometimes it will be a word that just pop up in your mind and you don't know why, but you hear trauma. So you're going to be working on trauma. Sometimes you might feel a pain on your arm, on your wrist, and then you decide to just focus on that and start from that. Another thing is, if you do expect to have all the information ready, given to you before you start the actual healing, it is not going to happen that often. Most of the time, it starts by a little tiny perception, and then because you start focusing on it, it's like you start to pick up the cord, and then from it you just bring more, like the net of a fisherman. Well, the fisherman don't get all the fish at once. He gets the net, and then he pulls the net, and in the net he gets some fish. And as he go along, he just brings more in. And at one point he gets one fish, and then he gets another one, and then he gets other types of fish, and then progressively he gets all his net out. Also, it's way lighter to do that way, instead of having to pull all the full bag of fish at once. I like images. It really gives us information on how we can use those tools and how to memorize them. I really understand that by having those stories given to you, it helps your mind to remember stories, and from the story you put the words around it and you start to have your own understanding of it. Do the same thing when you want to learn for teaching or a technique. I like to memorize the techniques, if I have to, by visualizing what I'm doing in the air, and at the same time I put myself in a state where I feel already the energy work of it. Let's say, for example, you want to remember how to expand an auric field of one person. Well, I will have my hands participating in remembering what I want to remember by actually doing the work in the air and remembering that act, that move is actually aimed for doing this. Participating and bringing everything in from audio, from the visual aspect, and as well your perceptions in your body really helps you to understand it better. Tony Robbins, for example, in his different events, he helps people to get empowered by doing some incantations, helping them to say and state sentences out loud with a lot of emotions, and at the same time he wants them to be able to do it out loud and having the body participating in it as well. See how even people doing some other type of work, empowering people in other different ways without calling it a healing, well, he's actually a great therapist. He still doesn't transform the energy. I went to one event called Success Resources in 2016 in Melbourne, and they were lining up different speakers, and at the end of this 4-day event, Tony Robbins was giving 2 hours of his time there, and in front of the whole room. Well, he helped people to release and to transform things, but if you would put your layers of psychic reading through it, and you will find out that there was a lot of release being done, but not being transformed. So some people will start to pick up the shift of others, and then they will release even more. And the density of the room was getting stronger and stronger with all those different things being released and not being transformed. Imagine the power of being able to use those therapy tools, as Tony Robbins does, plus adding the energy work that we are doing. I do trust that in the room there were other healers, other psychics who were given the task of doing it as they were participating in this event and having as a task to transform the energy, to shift it, to increase the level of frequency of the room. But what if they were not? What if the actual therapist, the person running the show, will actually do the work and create a field of energy the same way we do it? Remember, time and space do not exist. You can create your vortex in the room, in your 12 square room or 20 square room, as you can just do it for 2,000 square expo. There is no limit to your ability of creating and manifesting this field of energy. The density, all those different parameters, they are totally dissociated from the energy that you put from you in it, because you actually create a field of energy. You really want to dissociate the intensity of the field of energy that you're working in with the actually dissociating the energy that you put into creating the field of energy than the energy coming out of it. That's another concept. Most people think that because they are going to use more intensity, then they're going to feel depleted that way. Well, by using the field of energy, this vortex, you're not depleted. Imagine that as soon as you create this field of energy, you're in out of space. And whatever slight input of information that you put into it, the slight push, it creates a huge momentum with no resistance. Now imagine that you open up a window coming from another reality and you bring all this energy in. It doesn't stop it also, and it keeps building up. Remember that the laws, physical laws that we are in this 3D world, do not apply for all of them in other realities. Depending on the places that you will go, the laws will be different. If you go to Atlantis, for example, remotely, the frequencies are different. The density is different. if you go to Egypt, then you'll be able to go through this portal and be able to connect to the other realities from those alien technologies. They will open up some gates for you, and you will feel that those energies are different as well. Sometimes you can bend things easier in one reality than another. So that's why it's easier sometimes to call in a certain frequency. Talking about frequencies, you also have the ability to connect to gods, goddess energies. They bring archetype energies and help you on that path. But they also bring their own energy into it. Let's say that you call, for example, Athena, goddess of war, and you bring her in. What do you think is going to happen? Well, obviously, a power, or energy, or wisdom is going to come through, but as well our character as well. Are you able to handle it? There are different cults that you will find who will worship certain gods and goddesses. In India, for example, they worship a lot of different gods through their prayers, and they use specific mantras to call them upon and to make them become reality. There are other different ways where you can go in trance and become that god and goddess. And you will find this in many different cultures. You've seen this in Africa, in different tribes. You've seen this with Incas. You've seen everywhere on earth. You've seen this, shamans do it as well. Sometimes even connecting through it could be demon realities, or it could be as well animals, depending on the world that you want to work with. The thing is, as soon as you start stepping into that, you have to really know what you're heading towards and how far you want to go and how much involvement you want to have. Again, your choice in making those decisions rely upon you. There is another concept you want to integrate as well. It's the concept of your own frequency levels and the brackets of energy that you're supposed to be walking in. Because of your past lives, because of your different other experiences, you come on earth with a range of energy work. You can compare this to a car. A car will start from 0, for example, kilometers an hour, and will be able to go up to maybe 160 kilometers an hour. But what is its most efficient bracket into that? Where is the car the most efficient? Is it around 120 kilometers an hour? It will never be able to go, for example, more than its speed limit. But the more they will try to push it and to go towards 160, the more you're going to go in increasing the speed of the engine and maybe burning it out. Versus another car, we can go up to 250 kilometers an hour. When you push it to 160, well, it's just almost like warming up for it. So going at 180 is its cruising speed, and everything is just fine at that speed. Everything is very stable. So depending on how you come on earth with, then you're able to work on that type of frequency, on that bracket. And that's your intensity, that's your power. Again, by doing some upgrades, by doing some trainings, by working on one technique or another. It's like changing one part of the engine. It can be changing the tires, it can be upgrading and putting better brakes, diamond brakes or something like that. You upgrade your car, your device, and it helps you to go, for example, much easier to greater speed. Now there is another concept. This concept talks about your ability to connect to different frequencies and to which frequency you can connect to. Because of your experiences in the past, because of your past lives, you start to be able to feel more linked, more connected to certain frequencies than others. I've seen people, they can only connect to angelic energies or higher, gods, avatars, ascended masters, and lower than that, it's hard for them to be because they feel it's way too dense for them. Other psychics will be working mainly with past ones, people who passed away, who are in between two worlds. Some others will be working with very specific frequencies, such as animals, and within this category, even more specific frequencies like birds or whatever type of animal. But you also can find people who have this ability to connect in other worlds that are darker with other type of forces. I've seen clients who are very much struggling with their inner ability of connecting with demons, and they don't do it on purpose, but they just connect to it, and then they struggle with what they have to deal with. Do we have to have fears about that? No. It's just part of your nature. Again, there is no right or wrong. It's just what you want to do with those energies and if you want to connect with them or not. Darker forces, and we need to talk about them as well, darker forces most of the time give you a lot of power, but on the long run, you still have to pay the price for it at one point or another. It can go up to selling your soul. So basically you can do whatever you want in this lifetime, but then from then on, your souls become part of the demon list, and then they can do whatever they want with your life and your destiny in other future lives. Is it worth it? Well, probably not. But again, it's your call. I've seen people coming to see me with very quite deep, interlaced stories where they would just make a contract and sign it with their blood. And you don't want to go into that, because as soon as you start signing something, then you feel committed, and especially if you use your blood. Your blood is your DNA, it also is part of you as well. We're talking about here about rituals and magic, and you don't want to have this not be known by you. You want to be aware that this is also reality and this can exist. It can be very simple and just start with some incense and some prayers, but it can go much, much deeper into different ceremonies. And ceremonies also by having to use humans and in different ways. Sacrifices in ancient Egypt were used a lot. You can see this as well in different other cultures. And I won't explain and go more into details in that, but you have to know that there is this part where this energy work at one point will guide you towards making choices in your life and how far you want to go into it. People sometimes talk about white magic and black magic. Well, An act is an act. It just depends on the intention that you put into it. And I've seen people working with candles and dolls and working with chicken and killing the chicken and using the blood of it to do some ceremonies. Well, in Brazil, for example, they're very strongly using, it's called macumba. It's a very strong energy work, dealing with all that type of things. You do have to know those different types of energy work and how they can be involving people in it, and how they can be limiting them or allowing them access to some power. It allows you as well to make your choices in your life and decide what you want to do, depending on your past lives as well. I have, for example, some abilities with shamanism without having taken any courses on it, just because I'm tapping into some of my past lives where I was a shaman, and then when I need to receive some guidance on those different topics, I tap into it and I just download the content and I'm guided into those different ceremonies. The more you're going to be aware of your past lives, the more you're going to be able to tap into it. And those past lives will come to you through your guides. And some of those guides might also be you from a past life. You do understand that this session that we are doing here is very dense, and we're talking about a lot of different subjects. I really want you to start to have different topics being pinpointed there and there, different tools, in order for you to be starting as well already thinking about what direction you want to give to your studies, what direction you want to go for your own studies, your own discoveries. It is also very important to decide what you want to do with your gifts, either feeling guided towards doing something or allowing your spirit or your soul to make those choices for you. How to connect to your own past lives, how to connect to your own guides, to yourself from the past. That's something that you can do by calling in a different type of energy. That's a very specific workshop as well that we could be doing one day, and I'm more than happy for those people who are interested into that, in working specifically on one-on-one on that. There are many different tools, and again, depending of your level of frequency, the frequency at which you are stable and you can work and stay there, then it allows you to do other things or not. It's like when you work with the Pentagon or NSA, you have those credentials and it allows you to log in and being able to connect to different programs or different information. They call it clearance level 4, clearance level whatever, allows you to do this and that task and to connect to that file or not. Well, it works the same way with your gifts and your abilities. Those clearances are given to you by your guides at one point or another, depending of the work that you've been doing, depending of the mission that you have to do, depending of the tools that you're supposed to be using. This is also very important. Let's talk, for example, about the Akashic Memories. Well, the Akashic Memories is a library just like you will find on internet, Google, and allowing yourself to access to all information possible on Earth, for example, instantaneously. Well, those Akashic Memories are the library of everything that's being ever recorded. Funny enough, that concept existed prior to Google and other meta engines for research online. How is that funny? you start to see those similarities between different worlds, and they all coming and joining to create and to shape something all together. The limits, the boundaries that we had between one world of energy towards and reality are dissipating. They are being transformed. Everything is being flat out. Everything is being leveled. How is that possible? Well, those interactions are greater and greater. It creates a grid. It's like creating more doors. And Google is a vortex in its way. It creates links to other realities and allow yourself to have access to it from a vortex, from a field of energy called your computer and your screen. And what comes out of it is content. The same way when you open up a vortex, you connect to other content, other guides. It works the same way by connecting to a past life of yours and being able to reach abilities of yours. I love as well those fantasy movies where you see in each of them there is a magician, or there is a psychic, or there is a healer. There is someone with extra powers who is able to do some energy work in one way or another. How is that possible that in the movies we all have them, but in reality it's like everyone do not believe in that, but they all watch the movies? Isn't that funny? All right, let's use the time remaining in order to increase your level of frequency and reinforce the work that we've been doing. All those different concepts that we've been working on today during this session, we are using the content that I'm delivering to you verbally, and we use that as a key to bring back your tools and your abilities. Learning the content and then accessing energetically to this content through the energy work. Remember that we've been working from the other hand until now. We were doing some energy work, and we would believe that will create shift within you as we were feeling things, perceiving things. And we will clear those different events. Well, now it's the other way around. We feed the brain, we feed the mind by giving more insights, more knowledge, more things to remember. And then we make it a reality with energy work. This concept of remembering is also very important. Most of the time, all this energy work, you will find it that it's almost like you knew it without knowing it. It's like you try to suddenly remember it, and it comes back to you like a flashback memory. It's like, yeah, I've never heard of it, but it does make sense and it feels right, and I can relate to that. You know this sentence, I can relate to that? Sometimes that's very important because it helps you to reconnect to something that you didn't know until now that it was possible, but there is a part of you who always knew that that part existed without even having the thought of it. It's a very interesting concept. Remember that there are a lot of things that your soul knows that your mind doesn't, and that you haven't experienced in this reality, in this lifetime, but you have in other past lives. And by reconnecting and by remembering what you've been learning in previous lifetime, then it comes back to you, and then you reconnect to it more easily and are able to use it. All right. I wish you all the best. And again, talk to you soon.